See. All right, everybody, we're going to get going here in just about 5 minutes, or 4 minutes, actually, 4 minutes. We'll get going here in just about 4 minutes. Hey everybody, we'll get going here in just about 3 minutes. So welcome, and excited to have you. Give us about 2 more minutes here, 3 minutes, and we'll get rocking. While everyone's gathering, if there's any particular questions you got for today, as we're kind of going through prompter type stuff, go ahead and start sending them in. We want to make sure this is dialed into the audience here that's with us here today. So send them on in, and JP will handle those. We'll be rocking here in just about a minute. Set the phone to stun. Welcome everybody. We'll get going here in about 60 seconds. So welcome, welcome. Again, if you got any questions or anything specific, we'll be hitting prompter today, but if you have any questions or want to see something specific, we'd love to be able to dial this in for the audience that's here online. So go ahead and start sending those questions in to JP and he'll be sending them along to me. But welcome. All right, well, we can go ahead and get started. We've got different people streaming in, which is awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the music. Side note, anyone looking for a fun little hack to create background music while if you're doing Zoom or something like that, you can do on the screen share at the very bottom, you can say include computer audio, and then you could use iTunes or whatever you want to kind of create some of that background music. So pretty fun. Well, let's go ahead and get going. My name's Stephen Bowles, and we're just happy to be here and happy to have you guys with us here today. This is part of our just sort of webinar series we're doing during this crazy chaotic time out there, where A lot of people don't have a lot of things to do. That sucks. And we want to just give you guys something to do. We thought at minimum, help it, let it be an opportunity for you to learn more about how you could be using the software, or if you're entertaining the idea of the software, this is great as well too. Also, just FYI, we are doing webinars every single Tuesday and Thursday until people stop signing up for them. And so if you just go to shoflo.tv, up there at the very, very top, you'll see check out our upcoming webinars. And that's where you'll be able to see the ones that we've been doing. We did one last week on virtual meetings, had almost like 200 people on it. We've got some customer spotlights going on. One I want to really highlight right now, upcoming, is the Vegas Golden Knights, Aaron, who's awesome. And then specifically another one, esports, John Deppa from Riot Games. So those are going to be some really exciting ones. They're both using Shoflo in very cool and unique ways. And so if you like this stuff, continue signing up and we'll continue pumping them out. With that, I'm gonna switch back over and just kind of talk about a little bit of the overview of what we're trying to do today. So our agenda is really just to do what we're doing right now, talk about the overview, go figure. We got a couple of polls going on, but then we'll hit kind of what are the traditional teleprompter overview. So this conversation today is really about the use case for a teleprompter in production, and then Shoflo's offering in that space and how you can use that. And then really, as we get into the prompter of Shoflo's offering, how specifically could you use it even in this current situation we're in, where we're all trying to do virtual meetings or have remote presenters, and how can we actually give them the prompter or the featured view along the way. So with that though, let's kick off the first poll. This is just helpful for us. JP, if you want to go ahead and launch it. What is your production industry? And so that's just helpful for us. I like to be able to dial in my conversation with the group of people that are on the call. And so it's just really important to me that I understand who all's hanging with us. So we'll let that keep going for about another 3 or 4 seconds. They're streaming in. I can already tell you a lot of corporate event production, which is awesome. Well, cool. Let's go ahead and close that out and show those results. Sweet. That's my peeps. That's where I came from. Live event production, corporate event production. My background's a live video director. Worked for LMG, done all of them, PRGs, the LMGs, all of the Gs, and then also worked with a lot of corporate event agencies. So I'm sure some of my friends are on this call, and I say hello. JP, let's jump to the next one real quick. Next one is just really, how many of your events use a prompter? And this is helpful for us, just as we understand kind of the audience a little bit. Obviously, corporate event production is going to be a blend. If you're using this more of a studio broadcast, it might be every single show. But that's just kind of helpful for us to understand that a little bit. Cool. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's end it and show it. Get that, JP? There you go, buddy. All right, cool. So yeah, this is awesome. Basically, give or take 15% on all of them. Majority of them, 14%. 50-50 game, 23%, some events, et cetera. So, well, cool. Seems reasonable. But thanks for walking us through that there, JP, and I appreciate you guys sharing that insights. All right, let's go ahead and stop sharing that. Well, so let's just talk about the teleprompter, right? The traditional teleprompter as we kind of engage with it. And for just everyone, it might be helpful for you to actually kind of know, what specifically those uses are. In general, you got over here in the upper left corner the idea of just that president or that presenter who's got it up on a giant screen because he wants to be seen looking forward towards the cameras, but maybe isn't a fan of some of the other options that are out there. Then you've got, of course, more of the upper right, which is like the traditional broadcast news or studio setup where someone's behind a desk. They're looking directly into a controlled camera. And the glass is literally designed to go right there in front of the lens. So there's that setup. Then you got the bottom left, which is more of the presidential. They're literally called the presidentials. So that's going to be that setup where you can kind of see your presenter or your president or whatever it might be is standing. He's actually looking through glass that are on stands and that are reflecting a TV screen that's there at the base. Typically in this setup, the camera is aware that that's going on and is sort of a part of the trick and is choosing to zoom past those particular presidentials so as to kind of, make the presenter look like they know what they're talking about without necessarily looking down or whatever it is. Again, that one's more about looking off and into large crowds. And then the upper right is more looking directly into a lens. And then you got the bottom right, which is the good old classic, and I think a lot of people on this call, corporate event production. So that's going to be the downstage confidence monitors, the dog houses, the confidence monitors, DSMs, whatever it might be. That's a presenter standing on the stage and then looking externally out. So that's pretty cool. And that's kind of our typical setup. So how do all of these kind of spaces come together? Well, at the end of the day, it's teleprompting software. There's one called Prompt Dog. You'd be surprised how many customers we talk to that do use something like Prompt Dog. Funny name, but the software is the tool in which you're managing the script. You're managing your active scroll, and then that's being fed, via your video engineering team or whatever it might be, directly to the monitors, confidence monitors on the base of the stage, to the camera lens and the prompter screen and setup that's there, or to the presidentials. But either way, the source is really the same, and that's what I wanted to show you here. And so, good news. If you didn't know it, we got one. That's what we're going to be walking through today specifically is Shoflo's prompter offering, which has some very specifically like high value things when compared to traditional prompter systems, none the least of which is it's integrated in with the rundown, and we'll be walking through that more specifically. Cool. So in Shoflo, you've kind of got now 3-ish different views. There's a couple more, but we'll keep it simple here today. And the top here, you can see compact view, right? So compact view, genius name, I know. So that's going to be more of your table-based view of your rundown, right? Audio, video, columns, production notes columns, media screen columns. It's going to be your items on the left, your timing columns. You will have an item runtime clock. You'll have a time of day. And then, of course, you can drop script in there as well, too. So the same user or a different user could log into Shoflo and choose to go to what we call featured view. And so featured view down here on the bottom left is really just giving you the idea of saying, hey, you might still and likely do want to see the plan on the left, the rundown, and your times and your durations. And if you're using show caller tracking, you're going to see that on the left side as well, too. The blue bar will auto advance. It's also going to continue to have access to that speaker timer, time of day, download, I mean, just all sorts of things. But what we're doing is we're featuring a specific column. So we're taking the script column in this scenario and we're featuring it. And we are allowing the user, whoever that user might be, to kind of drag and slide the size of the text of that column. So that's cool. We actually designed that for PA readers or for corporate event agencies who potentially just want to have quick access into speaker or presenter notes along the way. That's what that's there for. So then we've got what we've worked on over the last year or so and have just kind of, been really refining. We want to get it strong before it comes out. And we feel very confident with it right now, which is what we call the prompter view. And so it's relatively simple. You are choosing to take this featured column or this featured column up here. You're choosing one column and you're taking it into more of the traditional prompter based experience where you can control text size, line height, speed, prompter width. We do introduce things like the read arrows, etc. And then from there, you can actually go into an active scroll state. You can hit spacebar and it'll scroll. And I'll be walking through all this here in a second. But just FYI, those are the 3 different views, and you can tell that they're the same cell in all those different views. So how do you control it, right? So I'm going to walk through this specifically here in a little bit, but we've really dialed our software around the idea of being able to do keyboard shortcuts mapped to certain parts of the prompter experience. So for example, adjusting your line height or adjusting your text size, we've got that mapped via a keyboard shortcut. And they're, some of them are easy and some of them are intentionally designed to be buried, Command Option Shift plus, whatever it is. They're not supposed to be used regularly on your keyboard, but they are available if you use tools like Shuttle or Contour Shuttle or Contour Shuttle Express. You can then go in with their software and map those complex keyboard shortcuts to these various buttons. So just FYI, these are your shuttle. It's very standard in prompter to have something that can control the prompter. And so that's the path we've taken, is to really use some of the open source ones out there like this. And so there's more than this. There's hundreds of these options out there that you can map keyboard shortcuts to. This is the one that we've really said this feels like a strong answer in this space. And so we've actually got over here at learn.shoflo.tv a real detailed walkthrough on where you can buy this. Amazon, I think it's like $50. And then also we've already went ahead and created profiles that are mapped to the prompter experience, and you can download those profiles here at Shoflo. Sorry, at learn.shoflo.tv. But that is the tool that you would use to actually control and move forward. So this right here is just kind of like to use, I mean, it's really simple, but just a visual. This is the challenge we're finding, that our customers are coming to us and saying, hey, how does prompter, could Shoflo's prompter bring value in a space where my presenters are not on the same stage? The traditional event agency is used to working in a ballroom, and so you've got the same downstage monitor set up, and then you're moving presenter A to the stage, and then presenter B to the stage, and the prompter operator is really just backstage and has direct, feed lines down to those downstage monitors. And so they're able to load the next script for presenter 1 to presenter 2. But what happens when we get in a scenario like this, where presenter 1 is in New York City and presenter 2 is in LA? Right? None of the softwares out there that are currently being used by event agencies backstage are really designed for that. Your options, they can be as simple as a Zoom output of the full screen of that local prompter operator sent over to that person. But I think anyone who's tried that out will quickly discover now you're competing with Windows and all that kind of stuff. And so we do have an offering. We've really been able to dial our offering around a solution in this, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. And then just FYI, I know that we're investing into this even more in terms of how can we give you even more tools to get that prompter to your remote presenters. But the reality of it is we're all trying to figure it out, and Shoflo has a offering for that right now. So here's an example of what we're guiding and we're seeing customers doing already, which is this idea of saying, hey, your remote presenter, let's bring them into Shoflo. And I know it's a crazy concept, but let's do it. Give them read-only or contributor access where they can only edit certain columns. Maybe take that away right there before the show. But either way, once they're in there, on their desktop, you could kind of set up an experience like this where you have Shoflo items on the left, the featured view with their presenter notes in the middle. They do see that item runtime clock. Over here, they do see the time of day. And then what we're saying is put whatever their video conferencing tool is, whether it's Zoom, WebEx, or Vimeo, or something proprietary, just put that over here to the right. So that's a setup. And then in this scenario, you can actually have your webcam up here. This whole thing is, by the way, a laptop, if I didn't make that clear. So your webcam's right up here at the top. So that's an option. Another one I like is this setup right here. Again, where you're moving the Zoom or the WebEx video conference, that's a floating window. And by default, they want to go full screen. And we don't want that for your remote presenters. We want those to be tinier and up towards the north side where it's really close, right up here to where the webcam is, because we want them to be able to be talking to the audience and it look like they're talking to the audience. And so this kind of setup also works for that. And we've seen people doing that, and it's very effective as well too. Again, the values here are you've put the presenter notes or the prompter right in front of your remote presenter. You've given them a shared speaker timer clock, and then they're following along with you. None the least of which is it's all real time, and you can pass those notes back and forth between each other, which is cool. Okay, cool. Well, let's jump into the actual software and break this stuff down. I'll say it one more time before we get going. If you have any questions, please send them over to JP. He's moderating our chat. JP's awesome. And you might have interacted with him before, just in support here at Shoflo. But use the Zoom webinars chat, and I'll be looking to answer those questions as they come along. Awesomeness. Let's bounce. All right. So with Shoflo, I'm going to do some really basic setups. Today's not about learning about Shoflo. If you want to do that, go schedule a demo or continue to join in on the webinars. Today's assuming your baseline understanding of Shoflo is pretty strong. And you're looking to learn more about the prompter functionality. And so I built here a very, very simple event. It's called the Developer Summit 2020. There's two different sessions, session 1 and session 2. When I load into session 1, there could and would be more information around your audio and video notes and your production notes. I've actually really tried to simplify our demo here so as to let you really focus on the spots that I'm making edits in, because I know it's a lot of text and it can get busy real quick. So just to be clear, we have a title row here, session A, and then we have 3 different presenters. Again, there's videos and all this stuff that come and cues getting them into it, but we've created a very simple bench test here for presenter A, B, and C. And these are their 3 different scripts as we have them now. Cool. So here's how you get to featured view. Eyeball up right, switch to featured view. When you switch over to featured view, you're going to be presented with something like this, and you're going to get to choose your column. I'm going to choose script. And there we go. Now I'm looking at the script column. Specifically, because this is blue, I'm looking at the script for item 1, presenter A. You know that because it's blue here, and then it also says presenter A right here. So that's kind of our helpful guide right there. If I on the left was simply just to select presenter B, we're loading a different script in here. Presenter C, I've loaded a different script in there. So that is how that works. These are just cells from the table-based view being uniquely laid out and presented in a featured way around this particular column and the cell associated to this row that you've selected on the left. Other things that you have available to you, if I was to adjust this slider, I can actually make it bigger and smaller, right? So we can go ahead and get a little bigger, or we can go ahead and get a little smaller. Pretty cool. And that's available to you there. So from this view, this isn't the view to read a 10-minute script that's scripted down to the word. It's possible, but to do that, you'd probably want to be somewhere like here. This would probably be 17 more paragraphs, and the user, whoever's in this view, would actually just need to just hover over and scroll. So it's not impossible, and some moderators or some panelists that are a little bit more comfortable might feel comfortable with that. But this is not what we would say is a prompter experience. This is more of just a large column experience. Other things that you can do in featured view is you can make edits. So I can go right into edit mode by double clicking, and then I am presented with my toolbar here. So I could come down here and quickly select this text of competently, not sure where that word come from, and I can just change its color, change it to red, and hit save. And that's saved right there, and that's now the new. I could also come over here and double click this and change it to be green, hit save, and that's the new. So a couple of things to know about Shoflo. We've got our per cell edit history. So if you click right here to the left of this kind of arrows, that's your cell edit history. I'm gonna click that. So that's actually opened up a record of all of the edits that have happened to this specific cell, which can be a very valuable thing if you're using Shoflo in more of a live environment, because Word and all that stuff's more of a linear undo. It undoes things as you in the order that you did them, whereas our undo is really specific to one cell at a time, which is cool. So you can come in here and hit restore content and go. I say that really just to say so that you can feel confident in knowing you could bring your presenter in, let them make edits. You could track their edit history over here on the right. And then at some point you could reduce their editing permission and really kind of protect that cell, which is nice as well too. Cool. So that's your cell edit history. Other things I want to make a point of real quick is that if I make an edit, it is seen by everybody. So I've actually got another user over here. Well, I did have another user. I think I got to actually go in and invite him. So let's do that. So I'm going to go out to the event. I'm going to my crew, and I'm going to invite this user that I thought I had invited in, but I had not yet done it. I'm going to set him as a contributor. His name is Steven plus Johnson, I believe. Shoflo.tv. Boom. Send. My little guy's getting in the way. Bummer. My little Dashlane login thing there got in the way, which is a little bit of a bummer. But specifically, so John Johnson's out here, and he's kind of able to get access to all the different events that he wants, but he has to actually be invited in, and so that's what we're actually trying to do right here, which it looks like I got kicked out. I'm going to have to come back in and try this again. Oh, bam. There he is. Cool. So I'm going to bring Johnson in again one more time. Sorry about that. Stephen plus Johnson at showflow.tv and hit send. Man, my dash line's killing me. I'm gonna have to bail on this, guy. Sorry about that. I'll have to work on that a little bit later. Well, for now, I'm just gonna stick with just this user. Go to session 1 real quick. So this user can switch back to the compact view, and you would be seeing competently those changes as they were to come. And so if you were to make an edit right here, for example, if you wanted to say, please wrap, you could bold that, change your text size, do whatever you want to do there. And if that user, again, I'll do this by just kind of having to switch back and forth right now. I'll switch back to featured view. We can see that those edits would have passed through right there in a real-time setup. So kind of cool. And that is a very important thing that we're guiding people to do, is in this featured view kind of setup, you can pass through notes like that right there in front of them. All right, so now I'm going to jump up to prompter view, and we're going to build on that from there. So I'm going to first go back, undo my edit history, take us to here, bam, and then I'm going to jump into full screen. So it's right over here. You can do it 2 different ways. You can say switch to prompter view from inside of feature view, or under this eyeball, you can just say switch to prompter view. Pretty complicated, not really. Switch to prompter view. So once I'm in our prompter view, this is really Shoflo's kind of prompter world. And I'm going to walk you through kind of what I'm looking at here. So on the left side, if I hover over, we see a little tab that appears. If you click that, that is all of our, that's all of our item rows, right? So we can see presenter A, presenter B. If I click presenter B, it's going to load up presenter B script in the center. If I jump down to presenter X, it's going to load up presenter X's script in the center. So pretty cool. So that's available to you there. It's a quick jump around to your different scripts. On the right side over here, if I hover on the right side, I can open up a tab here as well. So from here, this is where I'm going to be able to really adjust the sort of controls and the way that the prompter is actually presenting. So we can see text size. Right now I'm on 9. If I just start to bump that forward, we can get a lot bigger, right? Presenter A lot bigger. I can also adjust the line height. I'm going to go up, or I can go down. Great. You can also adjust the bold. So down here, you'll see bold font. If I click that, we're going to go to a bigger bold font. I can also click all caps on, and now I'm in more of an all caps type experience. Some presenters like that, some presenters don't. And then I have a variety of other tools that I'm going to work through here throughout the demo. Then you have like the prompter width. So the prompter width is really going to be adjusting how wide it is, because again, depending on what monitor you're displaying on, you might want to adjust how wide the width of your actual prompter is. And so that's really what that is from there. And then up here, you can see where it says switch to full screen. So if I hit switch to full screen, that's going to take us into our full screen experience. And then if I was to close this tab, we now have arrived at ultimately that kind of presenter or that prompter type presentation that you would ultimately be passing through to your camera teleprompter system, or to your downstage monitors, or to your presidentials. So that's kind of how we get to the final result, is right here. From here, I can still scroll up and down with my own mouse. Obviously, different computers are going to be more awesome on that. I actually really love the Mac, and the scroll pad there is really nice and smooth, just really kind of fluid. You know, so I think those are really good options. But I just want to be clear, scrolling with your mouse is not what we would say is the same as active scrolling. Active scrolling is when you choose to engage the active scroll by hitting the space bar, which I just did right there. And to be all honest, on a Zoom webinar, this is probably going to come through choppy. So you take my word from it and then go and demo this yourself inside of our software in a trial, which we're doing plenty of right now. But this is a very smooth scroll for myself right now. And so what I'll do is I'll open up on the right side this little window, this little our controls area here. And I'll show you what it looks like. So speed direction, currently we're at 4. I can ramp that forwards, and now we're going to be scrolling even faster. I can ramp it really up fast, and I mean, now we're just cranking. And I'm sure that just looks like 2 frames a second on this webinar. So I'm gonna bring it back down to, you know, something like a 3. So that is our scroll speed. That is only applied after I've hit the space bar, which engages the scroll speed. So space bar gets you going, speed direction here gets you in terms of your direction and your speed. And notice I can actually go through 0 and take it backwards. So you can rock it forwards or backwards, which is pretty cool. So other things you should know is right here, we have the annotations that kind of say space bar to start scroll, up and down keys for your scroll speed. So I'm going to actually go ahead and hit up and down, and we can see, look at that. I'm actually I have to kind of hover over it so you can see it. There you go. So I'm hitting up and down on my keyboard, and that is actually controlling the speed. So if you don't have a full-on setup, if you're trying to do maybe something a little bit more guerrilla style, and you're in a quarantine, and you want to do something in front of a green screen, you don't have to have everything. You can literally just use your keyboard and hit spacebar and then go up and down from there. Ideally, like I mentioned earlier in the slides, with that contour shuttle, you've actually mapped the up and down keys to the inner scroll wheel. So I'm going to take us out of full screen here. Just now that you guys have seen that, I won't stay in full screen so that I can have better control. But you can kind of see here, if I go back, the contour. So we actually suggest, and again, it's all on our website here, on our Learn document, we map the up and down keys to this inner jog wheel. So with Contour Shuttle, there's an outer jog wheel and an inner jog wheel. And it's important that you map it the right direction, at least from our perspective, best practices. The inner jog wheel, we let that map to up and down keys on your keyboard. I think we map just this button on the left to the space bar. And then we map the outer jog wheel to the same as just scrolling up and down with your mouse. And so what that does is in a live prompter experience, that is going to put you more in a place where you're using the outer jog wheel to kind of quickly just jump around, get where you want to be. And then once you're there, you might hit this button on the left tied to the space bar. That starts you scrolling. And then while inside of that, you're using the inner jog shuttle to ramp your speed up and down based on the presenter's ability to stay up to speed with you along the way. Covered a lot there. Queue up your questions. I've seen about 4 or 5 come in. I'm going to jump on them in just a minute. Let me finish a couple more points, and then we'll walk through all of those questions. Other points to make. Over here on the right, you can turn on and off your read arrow. So if I turn it off, she gone. I turn it on, she back. So that's going to be, again, over here on the left. And you actually can move that for whatever purposes. If you needed to, you can put that wherever you want. And that's a helpful tool to be able to dial that in specifically based on text size or whatever it is. You also have the option to do a horizontal mirror. So horizontal mirror does what it says it's going to do. It flips it horizontally. If you were to go into edit mode, we flip it back, right? It's kind of hard to type something when you're in edit mode and when it's backwards. But when you're in presenting mode, right, like this, we go ahead and flip it. Why do we do that? Anyone who's a prompter on this call knows all about this, but just for best practices purposes, I'll show it off right here. This glass, by default, a mirror or glass, when you're looking at a reflection of something, it's going to flip it horizontally. And so sometimes, often, depending on what your setup is, you need to upstream of the actual teleprompter's glass, do the flip. And so that's what that functionality is for. If you're presenting for if you're using Prompter for downstage monitors, that's not a necessity. If you're using it for setups like this, it's not a necessity. If you're using it for presidentials, typically the presidential setups, the actual monitors themselves are higher grade monitors, and they can offer you the option to do flipping. Also, one more note I'd say is if you can insert some sort of hardware image processing in between prompter and the need to flip it, i.e. like a Barco Image Pro or something like that, that is preferred because then you can go into your mode here and really have see it, not backwards, to be honest. It's not that, it's that simple. It's better to do it this way if you can, but that's what that functionality is there for. Other things I want to mention, item info. So item info is what we call this section right here. It's basically just the title of the item that you're in. And so you can turn that off. If you turn item info off, it goes away. If you turn it back on, it comes back. So depending on what your use case is, you may or may not want that to be passed through all the way to them. Last one is real-time edits. So you can actually shut down all edits. So while there is value, and I'm going to demonstrate that here right now, by going into Shoflo with two different users. I'll actually just kind of, since I was running into problems with John Johnson earlier, I'm not going to mess with that again. But I'll demonstrate it by just having my same user in here twice. So this user is going to be on the left, and then this user will be over here on the right. And just to kind of make it not so fugly, I'm going to actually bring down the text size just a little bit, and so that these can kind of sit next to each other. So this user on the left can make changes. They can come in and make that edit, change it to yellow, and that will pass through in real time for that prompter. So massive value if that's what you're looking to use the prompter experience for. So for example, let's just say that you had a couple of names, and the actual setup here is you didn't know what the questions were. Actually, this is great. Question 1, just like JP setting up for me, and then question 2 on the left. So you could actually pass that through, and then as you get answers, or as those questions come in, for example, Tom Hansen asked the question, are the controls unique for each presenter? On the producing end, you could actually come in here and change question 1 and just place that in. Tom Hansen asked this question, pass that through, and of course that's going to pass through here. So massive value, this idea of a real-time connected rundown to your prompter, that's a really great use case for it. We know that's big in sports, we know that's big in esports, and I know from my own experience that event agencies could use this in the ballroom when it comes to things like Q&A or other notes like that. Same thing also I mentioned earlier, you could use this as a place to send a message. You could say, please wrap, make that bold, make that red, and pass that through to them. And really the last thing I'll make a note on here is this includes while you're in an active scroll. So if I was to change my speed direction, kind of come in here, go ahead and get to scrolling. Let me see if I can find a good version of it. Presenter A, maybe. See if I can get my presenter going. You can actually, as they're in the middle of the scroll, actually have them see that as they're going. So here we are, we're scrolling. On the left here, I'm going to come in, I'm going to just change question 2 to be orange. Pass that through, and we can see, oh, do I have my real time off? Let's see here. It looks like it did hold off until we actually got there. So that's a way to pass it through. If you want to, you can control the real-time edits being on or off. If they're on, it'll pass through. And if they're off, it'll actually queue it up until the next time they stop, or the next time you come down here and actually click retrieve latest. So we have answers for kind of in both spaces on that. All right, last one I want to make a note of, and then I want to have some conversation on this, is the idea of this being tied to tracking. So on the left over here, I can actually come in and be a show caller. So let me see if I can kind of set that up. There we go. And so what this will let you do is if you're the show caller and you're choosing to advance from row to row to row, and you were to be in like a featured view kind of setup, you could simply hit the space bar, and that is advancing both you and anyone who's following along. They're going to be passed through as well into your into that particular script. So on the left, for you, you could actually be the show caller, and you're hitting the space bar. And on the right, and then that remote connected presenter, their screens, their actual script here would load their content in as you actually advance into that row. So that's going to work really, really well in a scenario like this, where you can kind of see presenter X has 3 or 4 slides, and each slide is more of like a presenter notes. And so for you, you're simply just advancing from one presenter note to the next. Does that make sense? So I think that that's a good use case for it, especially currently with the virtual meetings. You could be the show caller, your remote presenter could be in LA, and then they could be in featured view, and all you're doing is just advancing forwards, and they're actually passing through, and they're just kind of getting the benefit of all of your featured view edits along the way. Okay, I'm going to pause right there, guys. If you have questions, go ahead and send them out, and I'm going to start taking a little bit of questions here from the crew. All right, I'm going to take it from the bottom up. Can you give edit permissions to the stage manager so he can make changes from an iPad on stage according to last-minute direct request from the speaker? If so, can you toggle on and off those permissions during the show? Okay, so I like this question. I'm going to make sure I got my head around it. Can you give edit permissions to the stage manager? And I'm assuming they mean the stage manager on the stage, not the show caller or the stage manager in corporate ballrooms who's back on the stage, back in front of house. It's where they can actually make changes according to last minute direct request from the speaker. And if so, can you toggle those on and off? Yeah, I mean, from the iPad, we don't have a featured view or a prompter view in the iPad. You can get there from like the browser. But the iPad app that we've got is built specifically around the table-based view. But that being said, it is they could actually be in their table view on the iPad, and they could be making changes directly here. And again, those changes will pass through. So where am I at here? I'm on presenter A. So same concept I was demonstrating earlier. You could come through on an iPad or on a computer or whatever it is, stage left, stage right. You could be taking notes from either producers or meeting planners, or even potentially, I guess, even from the presenter on the stage, and you could be loading those up into these cells. And so if I was to add question 3 here, for example, those are all going to be passed through as they get there, right, in real time. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, send another one, follow up for me on that. Next one's Chad. Chad's got a question regarding my mirror question previously. A future feature request would be an extended screen, so the laptop screen could view normally with menus, and the extended screen could be presenter view only. No menus, mirrors, flips, etc. Heard 100%, and I love that. We've actually already got a working prototype of that. And my hope is that that's exactly what we have. I was looking at it earlier, actually. I've got a little thing right here, go to mirrored view. And that actually is a part of the prototype that we've got. That's not available to all users, but for me. So the idea there, our vision for that, Chad, just to make it, say it out loud, is you can actually launch another window. And that window is then, you could put in your secondary desktop or output or whatever it is. That's the one you send to the bottom. That one's got no UI or anything like that. And then you're making changes here. And that one's really just a slave to you. So if you were to scroll and active scroll here, it would stay in sync with you to the millisecond. Another note on that would be really helpful feedback if anyone's got feedback on this, but we're actually looking at doing something I think pretty innovative, which is remote prompters. So the idea of like not only generating being able to break this out and have it be something that you could sit in a secondary monitor, but actually it being a URL you could share to someone in Dubai, someone in Germany, someone in LA, and you could have 15 different remote views and they're all following along live as the main person here moves in and out, scrolls up and down. So if that's of something that's of interest to you, I would love to get a user feedback session on it because we are working in that direction, have prototypes on that already, and I'd love to get your feedback. Hey, JP, also while we're on this, just because my dash lane's getting lame, can you invite Stephen plus Johnson at Shoflo.tv to this event? I'm gonna keep going because I want to demonstrate some more of that functionality. All right, so Josh Cook, in prompter view, who is scrolling the scroll, the remote presenter or the remote prompt op? Okay, great, good questions. So in prompter view, in this view that I'm looking at specifically right now, this is, let me get this guy out of the way, boom. So this is a view that any user can get to. So it's not like some sort of specialty hidden view. I'm Stephen Bowles and I can get into it because I was invited in as an event crew and to this event, and then I just went up here and switched over to prompter view or to featured view. So if you brought in your remote presenter into Shoflo on the event level, they would have ultimately access to get to this view right here, whether it's featured or prompter. Once they're in this view, the idea would be that currently, this is again with what I was just talking about, currently it's whoever is staring at this screen, like their browser, are the ones who are hitting the space bar, or are the ones who are controlling text size and things like that. So technically speaking, which is kind of fun, you could have 3 different people on the same script prompting in different parts of the script, and at different speeds and at different text sizes. So for the event agency groups right now, that's actually a really cool use case. That means that you could be, again, in Shoflo, maybe you're in offline rehearsals and you're loaded up and you're working maybe down here for this presenter. I'm just going to go ahead and change this presenter's text to be like green, so maybe down here it's a bunch of TBDs. We don't know. Offline rehearsal rooms are actually prompting and testing, and then you're filling that information out as you go and as you're in there with that presenter. And what's great about that is that's not a separate file that you have to then save and email and manage through Dropbox and distribution and all that stuff. That's in the same script that this user could be in right here, to where now if they went all the way down to, what was it, present? Yeah, they could actually sort of get in and see your progress on that script as it's going. Other big benefits that come from that idea of we're all working together in the same run of show, is you can move things around, right? So let's go ahead and change this to a global highlight and then this to a different one. So if I wanted to move this element up twice, 3 times, why not? Right there, that script stayed in sync with me. Traditional prompting softwares, they're going to have their own sort of, like, I guess, agenda, or their sort of run order of their scripts and who's going at different times. And so that right there is pretty cool, because it all stayed in sync. Because the next time I actually load up this particular thing on the left, we're actually going to see that it's actually moved around, which is cool. So we can now see slide 3 is above prompter X. So those are really, that's the why we got into prompter, was we believe there's strength and high value that comes from the prompter being sort of incorporated into the rundown, and vice versa. And then with all of that, again, with that cell edit history, there's safety in knowing who made these changes, what time did these changes happen, clear visibility and being able to roll back and forth. But that idea of offline rehearsal rooms working, and the pipeline of that being something that's ready for the on-stage rehearsal, is all happening right here, which is pretty fun. One other thing I wanted to mention on that space is that the different prompters, that, again, they can have their different views, and they can be at different text sizes. They can also continue to benefit from the item runtime clock. So again, in featured view, if you were to be in that featured view in an offline rehearsal room, you could actually continue to test out, all right, how long realistically does presenter X go? You could be a show caller yourself. It's okay to have more than one show caller. And you could track into presenter X, kick off your 10-minute IRT, could actually throw that into a small little iPad or something like that in your offline rehearsal room, make your edits to the script as you go, and ultimately say, you know what, we haven't been able to land this in less than 12 minutes. So let's just be honest, bump that to 12 minutes. So again, a lot of change of hand and information exchange there that can be streamlined. Obviously, you want to have a healthy conversation around who's making edits and when, but the value on the other end of those conversations can be strong. I'm going to bring up and kind of keep cranking forward here. So a guy named Shane Stokes, what's up, Shane? Is there a limit to the size or length of the script? If it just pulls off one of the cells, a large script would resize your show flow line to be huge. Yeah. Yes is the answer to that. It would go get big. We're looking at different ways that we might want to be helpful for you in that scenario. But let's just build out what you're talking about. So let's go into edit mode here and just paste, right? So yes, now we have a very, very large script. My answer to that, Shane, would be not, again, remember in Shoflo, the different people who are looking at the rundown can choose which columns they want to have. And so the person who doesn't need to have a blown up rundown can hit hide column, and boom, we're down to nothing. There's nothing in here now. So that's the idea, is that would be my guide to them, is really don't have it open if it's not something that's relevant to you. Other options, though, we are looking at on that, and I think make good sense, would be anything over a certain row height, maybe anything over 2 paragraphs. We go ahead and just truncate it, which just means it kind of shows that dot, dot, dot. And then it's only if you choose to engage with that row and pop that full. So that's kind of the stuff we're talking about on our end for solving that on our end. So, but yes, I'll take your question and run it even a little further. There's been discussion on how do you use prompter across multiple rows. So is it more appropriate for presenter C here to have one giant cell with the whole script, or is it more appropriate to essentially break out the script into different queues and then duplicate presenter C, and maybe there's different cues that are happening in there, and every one of these are a different part of his script. You can go either way. There's pros and cons to both, but the good news is that in the ultimate prompter view, let's see if I can get there. I got it. Yep, here. It's threaded. We call this a threaded script. And so as I'm scrolling through presenter C here, I can see, remember, I duplicated the row presenter C 3 times. And so now I've scrolled right into the second one, and now I've scrolled into the third one. And actually, if you take away the item info on this, you're really pretty seamless in the scroll. So that's what's possible. My guide on that would just be, I think the script should be all in one cell, and then I think that the sub cues that are maybe like a video or a media cue or a graphical cue should be annotated differently in Shoflo. And so if that's something that anyone here is interested in, raise your hand, and I can spend more time at the end of this call or do a deeper dive into how to handle sort of that sub cue concept. But that's my answer for that right now, Shane. Good question. Amy, is there a way to move the read arrow to the center where it usually sits with a prompter? I think what you meant by that is the right here, and the answer is yes. I don't think you meant the center of the screen, but yes, that is possible right here. So maybe you asked that question before I showed it, but hopefully that answers your question. Ken Burke, what's up, Ken? I like Ken. If I'm in location A calling the show with my team, have my prompter person for the event with me in location A, 8 presenters all in different locations during the show. While location B presenter is live, can a presenter in location A make a tweak to the script while they are waiting? Yes, and I think I was demonstrating that to varying degrees of success earlier. But I think what he's getting to say there is, if I'm live, if I'm currently right here, presenter A, and then I had another presenter over here, and he's presenter B, and he's choosing to also be in prompter view, he could be, so let's actually, I think I might have that. So presenter B is right here, and this presenter A is right here. He could actually be in his own scroll, and you could be in your own scroll right here. And then I think you were going as far as to say, can you make edits? And let's talk about it. ABC, hit save, yes. So by the time this user now gets all the way down to your next, just go ahead and jump to him, presenter B, we actually see the ABC is in there. So I hope that's a good demonstration, Ken. I love the question. That's like a legitimate, like, I'm working this problem and we need to get you on a webinar, and we can talk about that some more. Let's jump over to Carrie. Can some presenters be set as all caps and others not? No. No. The all caps is an override of the particular view of a prompter looking into all of the prompted scripts here. The way to do that, if you wanted to, is you would turn all caps off, and then on a per basis, you would come in here. So which one was I on? Let's see here. Oh, I got to turn my item info on. Presenter 1. So then from here, you would just type it in all caps, and then that would pass through appropriately. So that would be the answer to that. Good thought. I'm going to write that down, take a note on that in terms of being able to have that as an attribute on a per cell basis. I think that makes good sense. Cool. Tom Hansen, are the controls unique for each presenter? So I think the answer to that is yes. That was an earlier question, Tom, so I'm getting to you a little later. You might have already seen the answer, but I'll answer it for posterity's sake. Yes. So again, I'm demonstrating here the same URL just being open in two different browsers, right? And it could literally be, and this really just shows you call it the magic, or even the way that we designed this. Every time you load this URL, we're treating you like you're your own prompter operator. And so you could literally prompt the same show 100 different ways. This is me demonstrating it doing 2 different ways, if I can. There it is. This user on the left has chosen to go with a text size of this big and a line height of this big. This user on the right has chosen something different. He's chosen this size, and he can prompt forward, and this one can prompt forward, and they aren't dependent on each other. And so that's powerful. And again, that's the same use case that I was speaking to earlier. Offline rehearsal rooms, remote presenters, everyone's dipping their hand into the same rundown with the same prompters, but they're able to control their experience per their use case. So for example, this is the last one. And I know I say a lot of the same words many times. I think I said, for example, 100 times. You could give your moderator, which I really believe strongly in the idea of an anchor. It's literally baked into the concept of broadcast news. If you're going to be doing virtual meetings, you need to have an anchor. You need to have someone who's controlling the conversation. Otherwise, it's like the Zoom you just had with your family last night, and it was just kind of a mess, but fun, but a mess. So you need to have an anchor. And so likely your anchor is a little bit more comfortable with production and what we're all trying to do. And so you could maybe ask a little more of them. And so in their scenario, you could actually give them a setup that's like this. Maybe it doesn't have to be so dang big. Maybe it's a little smaller, maybe they're comfortable with the UI controls open. And then lastly, again, they can maybe they need, using what I was just demonstrating earlier, maybe they're actually putting their Zoom window, which I'm just using this as a demonstration, right here. And boom, can your remote presenter or their moderator be able to can you teach them to just hit spacebar? I think you can. Can you teach them to hit up and down arrows to control your speed? I think you can. I think there are some you can't, and that's the responsibility of the producing team to be able to gauge that capability set, on a per presenter basis. But certainly there are scenarios where you could. What's great about this view is, again, if you could make them a contributor where they can make edits, you could make them read only where they can't make edits, but they can make edits. So you could be doing a rehearsal for a virtual meeting, go right into edit mode, and he could say, no, I don't want to say quickly, I want to say slowly. I like the way that rings a little better. Hit save. That just passed right through to the table, to the main rundown. You know what that would have taken before? That would have taken the teleprompter operator backstage, taking a note from the presenter over their shoulder, and then she would have made the change. Then she would have printed out a script, handed it to a PA, and that PA would have run to the front of house and given that to the show caller and the producer so they can have an updated script. And then, of course, there's the whole moving and transferring the notes and annotations. But that didn't happen here. That change happened right here. And anyone who is in that table-based view or whatever, they got to see that change live as it happened, which is pretty cool. Okay, cool, guys. So let's keep going with the questions. Going down here, Jer, can you send prompter view to an iPad operated by the onstage presenter without giving any kind of permission for editing or adding the presenter to your team? This to be used as a hand script that rolls up and down while the presenter is on stage. Okay, so you're looking for a use case where this thing's on an iPad, likely on like a podium, or maybe they're at a desk, like an anchor, and it's just right there in front of them. So can you get there to an iPad? Yes, but you'd want to not use the iPad, the Shoflo iOS app, which is really only designed for the rundown table view, which we are going to build one for the prompter. You'd want to use it through the browser, and then you want to go directly to feature view or prompter view. You would also then want them to have show caller tracking on, and then yeah, they would be able to follow through with you. There's pros and cons of that. I want to be clear on that. I don't want to get anyone in trouble. the iPad, on the iPad, you're not going to be able to like scroll like this. It's not designed like that. We probably should make it that way, but it's currently not designed for that use case. It's designed for a browser used with a full keyboard and a mouse and sort of the desktop view. Jared, I want to talk with you more about that. So ping us, and I want to walk through that some more. I think that's good. That's an interesting use case. Chad, incorporating a runtime clock in the presenter prompter view that we could override would be a nice feature too, especially replace the use of the separate DSAN speaker timer clock. Totally agree. We're looking at that actually currently right now. So we do have in the featured view the IRT, which we can see actually in this 12-minute I've gone over. Being able to override that, let's say that you got into it and it was 12 minutes long and you wanted to cut 3 minutes. So that would be different right now. That wouldn't be the way that you'd accomplish that. But this can be helpful if you work within the rules that it is right now. And I want to build that. I like that. Incorporating a runtime clock in the, oh, I got that one. Brian Fed, to follow up on Josh's question, is there a way to send prompter view to remote presenter A from remote presenter op B? Yeah, I think I answered that in the subsequent questions, but so currently I cannot drive a remote prompter, right? Users in different locations, I can't drive that. Each one of them can load up their own view of prompter or featured view. And with tracking, they can follow along and literally jump from row to row. You can push them into the next script, right? You can do that. But I can't make them move into an active scroll currently with Shoflo. That's what we have as a prototype currently, and we're really excited about, and so we're working on that. But currently, if you wanted to do more of a presenter notes concept, right? Which I think we have down in like this view, where there's with no scroll necessary, and you sort of see the multiple bullets. You could then from here actually turn show caller tracking on, follow somebody, and then as they advance from row to row, it would bump them to the next row, essentially then driving that experience. And that also is available in the full-on prompter view. So in the prompter view, if I was building my slides in a way to where it looked more like this, and then I turned on single item, which single item is really just about presenting one different, let's see here, boom, not showing the next slide too early. Single item kind of creates that padding space. So from here, they could be in a full-on view. They could be tracking along to a show caller, and then that would bump them forward into the next row. So really unlocks options, but you'd want to do that in a coordinated area approach. Janet Thompson, for remote prompters, do you create the URL? No. The URL is here. Well, I guess let's talk about that for a second. So for remote prompters, first, you have to be aware that you need to bring them into Shoflo as a user. So that starts with some of what I was showing earlier, but let's see, I'll just go back to the event dashboard. You'd first need to bring them in, set them as the permission you want. From there, I think that you could do one of two things. You could either just create a little GIF that says, first go into the session one rundown, and then switch to prompter view or featured view. Alternatively, once they're invited in as a user, you can take this URL specifically and an email, text, or whatever it is. If they click that, it's going to take them to Shoflo. If they're already a user, then it'll just take them right to this screen. So that is a way to do it. My thought on that space, guys, producing virtual events right now, specifically if you're in the event agency, but really on any level, who's doing production better than Zoom. Yeah, I like the approach where you've got your remote presenters on a tech check, 30 minutes to an hour before, and maybe they've got a unique one-to-one Zoom with a PA who's in Orlando. It doesn't really matter where, and that PA is coming through doing a reverse control of the screen, and is helping them get their environment set up. Whether it's Shoflo or PowerPoint or whatever, you know, I mean, the basics there, get your icons cleaned up, do whatever you got to do. That I generally like that approach. I think that's producing. And so I think that's going in and creating the best setup you possibly can. And so in that scenario, if you were to be using Shoflo, I think that the PA in that scenario would help guide them to this view, walk them through the basics of spacebar, stop, up and down arrows, etc., and then essentially let them go from there. So that's my thoughts on that subject. Brandon wrote me a paragraph here. If you made a script now, if you made a script row for each slide in, say, a 40-slide PowerPoint, could you possibly connect your Shoflo prompter computer to a DSAM perfect queue and take the advance on the tracking to follow the slide clicks automatically? And could get heavy on the pre-production per deck though. That's fun. All right, yeah, so we can. It's fun, but we can. So yeah, we did design the left and right arrows. So what I'm doing right now is left and right arrows. These are just short keys. And so you can see here that I'm actually just moving through the script like this. Actually, I have another one too. If FYI, you can hit, I think it's Shift. Shift will jump you to the next one that's actually got content, which all of these have content in it. Answer to your question there is, if you did put a perfect queue in and you put that USB into this MacBook Pro that I'm on right now, and then that person hit go forward and you gave, you know, via your PC or your Mac, control to perfect queue to actually represent the forward, you know, to represent these buttons, you can, yeah. And so anyone who's worked with perfect queue knows you can actually daisy train, is it daisy chain? Anyways, DA it. Essentially, you can get that going to multiple computers. So one perfect queue can actually push forward the PowerPoint, which is on a different computer, not the same one that I'm on right now. And then it could also be tied up to prompter and you can move it forward. So yes, the answer is that is yes. And we've actually done some tests on that locally. Janet Thompson, is there a way Shoflo shows who is actively editing in and offline, i.e. in offline, so as to not override the file? We use files in Dropbox, or do you have to communicate that you are actively in the file? Ooh, that's a good one. Let's see here. So we do have this, and I'm going to turn it on. We've kind of got our answer for this. What I'll do temporarily here is just, because I need to actually go turn this thing on, I'm going to pause this and go turn that feature flag on. It's a good one though, I like it. So it's gonna act kind of like, it acts kind of like Google Sheets, where you can actually see specifically who is on what cell. So we do have that functionality that we're playing with right now. So I'm about to turn that on for myself. So boom, true, save with comment. Cool. And actually, if you guys like this, let me know. We're happy to bring you into the actual trial for this as well too. All right, resuming my screen share, hitting refresh. So you can see down here, I've got Ego and myself. And so JP, if you want to jump down to row 9 here on session 1 rundown and go ahead and select the cell for script, there you can go. So we can see this is JP right now. So pretty cool, and functionally does do the thing that you're talking about in terms of visually communicating, hey, someone's in edit mode of a script. And we're looking to improve on this. We've had a couple of people who have already been testing this with us, and they've got some good feedbacks that we're incorporating. But if this is something anyone on the call is interested in, let me know, and I'm happy to bring you into the beta test of this as well. Cool, hope that's helpful. All right, friends, well, I think I'm gonna move into a wrap mode here. I appreciate it. So this is a great time to try out Shoflo. Bang your heads around, play with Prompter. So come on in. It's very, very easy. If you already have Shoflo, or if you're a customer of Shoflo, but you haven't renewed your license, but you we're very open right now, and come on in. We want you to use this as a time to play around. If you've never looked at Shoflo before, come over here, hit request a demo. We'll walk you through a personal demo and then set you up with a 14-day trial and extend it as long as you need. And then last, if you are interested again on using the contour shuttle, we have all of that right here. You just got to go type in shuttle, bam, and that's where you'll get the more detail around that. And then I'll mention it one more time just for everybody on here. We got some really cool upcoming webinars coming up, and you can find that by going to our website, clicking upcoming webinars. And then you can see here upcoming up, we have NHL, and then we have Riot Games, which they went to a decentralized production workflow in less than 48 hours. So they're killing it, and they're using vMix, they're using all that AWS to do all their entire production team is decentralized in different departments. Their presenters are and everything. So they're using Shoflo, and then they're using all these other bad A tools. So we're going to walk through all of that with them. And so if anyone on this call is actually trying to figure out how to pull off a virtual meeting, and you want to see someone who's doing it actively, this is a good use case, and you should sign up for that webinar as well too. Okay, awesome guys. Appreciate y'all. Stay healthy, stay well. Sucks what's going on, but the end will come. This too will pass, and we shall move forward and all be drinking beers at a lobby bar again someday. Appreciate y'all. Have fun, and catch you later.